Most people set up their offshore companies in the wrong place. They think they'll get easy access to banking, tax breaks, privacy, but instead, they're left with a stack of worthless papers and a massive headache. We've seen people waste thousands of dollars on offshore setups that just don't work. And the problem? They didn't ask the right questions before forming the company. And after 30 years of experience in this space, our team knows exactly the difference between lawyers that know their stuff and paper pushers just trying to sell you a company. So guys, before you even think about offshores, ask yourself the question, what is your end goal? Is it to lower your taxes, easier access to banking, protecting your cryptos? In the next few minutes, I'll show you step by step exactly the questions that you should be asking all of your offshore incorporators to make sure you don't get scammed, you don't waste your time, and most importantly, you don't burn your money. Let's get into it. Let's start with the most critical question. This should be the first thing you're asking your lawyer, which is, can a foreigner like yourself be a shareholder? And tied to that, can a foreign company, trust, private foundation, own shares? And the question that links them both, can a foreigner own a company and open a bank account? This is key because some jurisdictions, like Estonia, allow foreigners to own shares, but you can't open a local bank account. And then there are jurisdictions like Switzerland, which need you to have a local director in order to open a bank account. You can, however, be a shareholder. So this is the most important thing. Make sure that you can actually do banking. Then you can also ask whether or not you can open a bank account online or you have to physically be there in person. The lawyer should generally know that. And in some places, such as Panama, the lawyer actually can recommend you banks that you can access and even do introductions. That's how it's done over there. Without a lawyer, it's very difficult to get banking for your Panamanian company. Next up is privacy. And the most important question you should be asking is, does the ultimate beneficial owner, which is you, the person managing and controlling the company, have to be disclosed? And if yes, who has access to that information? Is it public or for government use only? And now let me explain what do I mean by that. Now, most jurisdictions today, they will require you to report the ultimate beneficial owner. However, some countries like the UK or Estonia have a public shareholding registry where anybody can look your name up. And then other places like Switzerland, the UAE, or the US have it all in government hands, and it is not public. It is for FinCEN's eyes only in the US case. So a lawyer or a regular person can't look it up. And this is where nominees come into play. If the country allows for them, use them. A nominee is essentially a front or an agent that acts as the face of your company on your behalf. So their name will appear in these public registries and not yours. Taking the example of the UK, where you have the online company house registry, you can use a nominee to shield your identity. So the question that you should be asking is, does this jurisdiction allow for nominee directors, shareholders, or secretaries? And if they do, you will need a power of attorney, a POA, so that they can sign documents on your behalf. So also ask whether you can use that POA to open bank accounts. Some jurisdictions like Switzerland or Liechtenstein actually have special purpose POAs, which are mandatory, and they obviously come at a cost. All right, let's now talk about costs, because you just don't want to get blindsided by some hidden fees. When you get that bill for your offshore company, don't just accept some random, vague company formation fee. Ask for a detailed breakdown and a list of services so you actually know what you're paying for. Now, this is what you would typically see in a bill. You don't have to memorize it by heart, neither have I, but you would see a registered address fee, a certificate of incorporation, memorandum and articles of association, certificate of good standing, these are quite common, an apostille if needed, certificate of incumbency, a nominee shareholding agreement if nominees are allowed, a letter of resignation from a nominee director, undated if needed, a general power of attorney if the nominees are used, instruments of share transfer, minutes of first meeting of members, share certificates, and a declaration of trust. Now, each country may have their own mandatory requirements and fees, which are country specific. For example, in the UK, you have to register with the Persons of Significant Control database and provide a service address. If you're going to form a free zone company in Dubai or Northern Cyprus, you're going to have to get the free zone license. And then each country will have their own compliance requirements and the fees will vary over there. Now, before you commit, here are some final questions you may want to ask about the legal structure. First and foremost, how many shareholders are required and what's the maximum amount? And then the same question for directors, whether or not you can have a foreign director, can it be a company, or does it have to be a local one? And is this information disclosed publicly? Then the same thing is for secretaries. Ask whether or not it can be foreign or it has to be local. All right, guys, let's quickly summarize and recap all of the previous steps. And step number one, before you even touch offshores, is have a goal in mind. What is it that you actually want to achieve? Is it lowering your taxes? Is it easier access to banking, protecting your cryptos, asset protection? Some jurisdictions are just better at it than others. And step number two, also before you even contact an offshore lawyer, is ask your bank whether or not they will actually accept that offshore company for banking. Usually you'll find it in the terms of services, or you can just contact the bank directly, because nowadays even onshore jurisdictions like Malta or Estonia have difficulty getting bank accounts for reputable banks. Know it before you buy it. And then we can go with step number three, which is asking the questions about the legal structure to your offshore attorney. And step number four is to have a breakdown, a list of services that you're actually going to get, a list of documents so you know what you're actually paying for. Anyway, this was a breakdown of basic questions that any competent attorney or service provider should be able to answer without hesitation. If they don't, just walk away. They may not be specialized in the field, or they're simply incompetent. That's it though for today's presentation. If you enjoy this type of content, share it with a friend, like and subscribe down below, because it does help with the algorithm. I made a previous video on how you can buy property anonymously using cryptos and a company. Check it out, it may help you out in the future. I'll be seeing you next time. Until then, bye-bye.